Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. Appreciate it. Oh, sorry, I have all of my stuff on here. I'm Lori Nash. I am with Johnson County Social Services and will be administering the request for proposals for the Juvenile Justice Youth Development Policy Board. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Ryan Fosmark. I'm the new grant specialist with the Johnson County Board of Supervisors, just providing some grant support and technical support with the new grants portal that we're onboarding. So happy to help.
All right. Okay. Oh goodness, I don't. All right, just 1 second here. As soon as I started my slideshow, it came up over every one of my screens, and I don't want that to happen. See if I can do something different here. All right, I'm going to figure it out because I can. Okay. There we go. Okay, awesome. So I am going to kind of just start by sharing my screen. I'm going to go through this RFP part really fast because hopefully you've all seen this already, and just answer some questions. And then after that, then Ryan is going to kind of walk us through the eCivis platform and kind of answer maybe some questions and let you know a little bit how that works. So, okay, I'm going to jump right in. And can you all see this slideshow? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to jump right in then. Okay, so we're just going to go through this really fast. Sorry. We'll start with some RFP instructions, then we'll talk about eCivis, then we'll have some questions after that. So with RFP, I'm going to go, like I said, really quickly. Purpose, priorities, strategies, results, and then we'll talk a little bit about format and timeline. So again, this is really utilizing a positive youth development approach with the end result of preventing youth from entering the juvenile justice system. Okay. We're really looking at kids age 10 to 16 because it is prevention, and especially focusing on underserved populations. So that could mean kids of color. It might mean girls who are at high risk. It could mean kids out in the rural parts of the community or who have limited access to other services. There are a lot of different ways that we can define underserved, and you'll have an opportunity to do that in your proposal. Really, again, we're looking at a high percentage of kids in grades 4 to 8. I'm going to show you this risk factor chart that has risk factors and protective factors, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But we do encourage organizations to collaborate. It's not required. We also encourage you to leverage additional funding through other sources, also not required. Okay. So I took the table that's on page 4 of the RFP and I broke it down a little bit because this is new from the last one. So we have these 4 different domains, and then each of them have identified risk factors and protective factors. Your proposal should identify a population who has at least one risk factor from at least one of these domains. It doesn't have to be from every domain. So either individual or peer or family or community. It can be more than one. And then we want you to also identify which protective factor you're going to support in order to minimize that risk factor. So again, so those, individual risk factors, and they're not measurable. So that would be up to you to define. How are you going to define poor cognitive development? And what is your criteria for eligibility for those youth? And then same sort of thing of, how are you going to, let's say, promote positive social skills? So these are the individual and peer. Family and school and community have more. We do include school community as having those risk factors and protective factors, but I think it's really important to stress that this funding is meant to be for programs and services that are provided outside of the regular school day. So that's really the intent here, is that we're not providing services while youth will already or should already be in school, but this is for those out of school hours. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. Okay. Again, all in the RFP, we define what is positive youth development. We talk about some of the strategies that each of the proposals needs to utilize. And those are kind of a harm reduction as well as a positive youth development approach. Same sort of thing. Just paying attention to this part of the RFP. I think it's important to know that we do want you to address barriers to participation, which could include transportation, snacks, language, technology, other household circumstances. It doesn't mean you need to provide transportation, but you need to address that potential barrier. So maybe your program is located on a bus line, or maybe you take your program out into the community where the target audience is living. Okay, again, just kind of going through some of this really quick. I do want to look a little bit about possible results. These are some of the overall positive youth development results. You can also identify specific results for your program. And so maybe that is increased self-esteem or increased self-confidence of that youth. So go ahead and kind of think about what your program intends to do and relating back to those risk and protective factors. Okay, all right. The RFP. So the RFP itself was created as a document, and then Ryan took that and put it into eCivis for us. So they follow each other, so they should be pretty close. There's a total of 100 points possible, and you can see here the distribution of the points for the proposal. This is in the RFP as well. After funding decisions have been finalized, you can request de-identified copies of the reviewer comments. So we won't do that until after all of the funding decisions are finalized, and you won't be able to see who made what comment. But I believe that those comments hopefully are constructive and can be useful as programs are planning future applications. Goodness, my mouse is having a hard time. So I'm going to run through this, and then Ryan will show you more in eCivis. Cover pages were 0 points. However, if you don't have this, then it's a non-starter. So we do need all of this information. We will at some point have to have the unique entity identifier
That's
from
what I
SAM,
got.
from sam.gov. Is there a question? Okay. So you will need, so not just your tax ID, but a unique entity identifier from sam.gov. If your organization does not yet have one of these, I have some really simple instructions on how to go about accessing that, and I'd be happy to email and share those with you. But this is different than a tax ID. Okay. I apologize, my mouse is crazy today. We'll look at the demonstration of need. There's 10 points. Some of these feel a little overlapping, which is why I want you to be able to see them now. This isn't like going into great detail, but we do want you to use data as much as possible to demonstrate what need your program is addressing. The project overview is, again, just a summary, not going into details, but what strategies are you going to use? How are they going to meet those needs? If your program is currently operating, you can talk about whether the need has changed over time and if you are adjusting to respond to that. This is where you might just talk about who is going to be providing the program. Who are the staff that will be doing the implementation? And then describe the staff qualifications. You don't need to go into great detail. If you want, you can include job descriptions as attachments. This is where really the bread and butter comes, which is in that description of the program. You know, in addition to some of the basic things, we want to know how will referrals come to you and how will you select who is able to participate? What is your research or evidence-based practice method that you're going to use? Ensuring you're incorporating a trauma-informed approach. Where will it be? When will it be? All of those sorts of things. And then if you are collaborating with other providers, how will that collaboration work? Really looking at if you think there are others performing similar services, talking about how your program is different and how you're avoiding duplication. Okay. Program evaluation, we added a few points to this one this year because we were asking a lot of questions at the last RFP. So we wanted to make sure that we asked this information up front rather than asking questions later. So be specific in your evaluation plan. Talk about what kind of evaluation tool you're going to use. Are you going to use surveys at the beginning and the end? Will it be interviews? Is it going to be a simple yes, no, or will it be a scale of 1 to 5? Who's going to complete the tool? So are you going to give those to the youth, or are the staff going to be doing some sort of an assessment on the participants? When and how often are those going to be completed? How will progress be measured and what are the criteria for success? So, if you're going to increase feelings of self-confidence, you might say that you're using a Likert scale, and it'll be a pre and post survey that youth will complete in their first session of the programming, and then that's the pre, and then the post will be completed between May 1st and June 30th. And the way that you're measuring it is you would like to have 75% of youth indicate an increase in what they give as a score for their own self-confidence. If you have specific tools already, you can include those as attachments, and then that will help us to better understand your evaluation plan. Project budget and narrative, again, 10 points. Other sources of support are not required to be included. However, if your program builds upon an existing program, and can't operate independently from that, then I would make sure that you include whatever the existing program is. If you're expanding something, adding to something, I would make sure that you're recognizing that this is not a standalone program and that it does rely on other funding and programming for success. If you are going to subcontract any of the services to be provided, include a budget for each project partner. Okay, work plan and evaluation. Most of you have seen this before. Again, in the RFP, there is a specific work plan that we'll kind of look at. I think one of the most important things is that, again, SMART. So the goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable by June 30th of 2026. And then that's where that realistic and timely comes in. So just a really quick example, right? If our goal is to increase economic resources, our objective is to increase employment opportunities. Specific activity might be to identify businesses and employment supports who will host youth. Our first performance measure may be that we're going to have at least 4 new business partners. Our program manager is who is responsible, and they will identify those 4 new business partners by October 1st. So this is kind of what we're looking at, is what are those measurable steps that you're going to be engaging in to achieve the overall goal. All right. We are down halfway almost in our timeline. Application deadline is March 31st at 4 p.m. So that means that you need to have submitted your eCivis funding application by March 31st at, I would say, 3:59 p.m., just in case. So have your application in by 3:59 p.m. If you run into any problems with eCivis, we'll give you some contact information on how to check in with people, but it has to be done in that format. Then the way this process works is that there's a subgroup of the Juvenile Justice and Youth Development Policy Board who will review and score applications. That will go to the policy board on May 5th for discussion, and the policy board will develop a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Actual funding awards will be made by the Board of Supervisors during one of their work session and formal meetings. And I'll let you know when those dates have been finalized. And we're looking at a July 1 contract start date. I want to point out that these are 100% county funds. So we are not in danger right now of losing this funding because of changes happening at the state or federal level. Now that could change in future years if the county needs to adjust things, but the budget that we have submitted is $350,000 per year for 3 years. It's slightly less than what we've had for the last 3 years because we were able to use some ARPA funding. So we're down a little bit, but it's more than we had before. So I consider that a win. So I have confidence in our ability to go ahead and implement these contracts. Any questions? Okay, here is what I'm going to learn how to do. Oh, good. Right.
I think I have a question, Lori.
Okay.
How many applications do you expect? And are applicants okay with you sharing them so we can look for opportunities to collaborate?
1, 2, 3, 4. I have received 7 letters of intent. Now the letters of intent were not required, but strongly encouraged so that people could hear this part of that Ryan's going to do next. I am happy to reach out to everyone who sent a letter of intent and ask if they would be willing to have their contact information shared with the other folks who are here, just so that then you can email or connect with each other and have whatever conversations you think would be most helpful. Would that work, Rachel?
Perfect. Or you can share my contact information also.
Okay, all right. I will do
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, and if you want to pop your email into the chat, you're welcome to do that too. Any other questions from anyone before we move on to the eCivis part? Okay, in that case, Ryan, take it away.
Okay, I'll take the reins. I'm just going to share my screen and walk you through the application process, kind of from start to finish. Just putting in kind of a little test application to demonstrate all of the ways that the portal functions. So here we go, screen sharing. And apologies, our office is in the middle of a kind of a major move. So I am on just my laptop and a keyboard that I'm not super used to, so I might be a little clunky, but we're going to make it work. So from start to finish, starting at the very beginning, we are finding Johnson County's homepage. You can do that by Googling Johnson County, Iowa, or you can go to johnsoncountyiowa.gov. And then if you scroll down just a little bit at the top here, you can see bids, proposals, and RFPs. You want to click that, and then scroll down to this funding opportunity, which you'll find 3 down, Juvenile Justice Youth Development RFP. You can click here for the RFP, and then at the bottom of this section, which gives us some information about due dates and things to note. At the bottom of this, we will find this link to the eCivis platform, so we'll click that. And that takes us to the solicitation, which is basically kind of an overview of all of the requirements for the grant, as well as some information about eligibility, financial pieces, contact information, and then some files that you'll want to download. So I'll breeze through this part pretty quickly. This just tells us when the application was opened and when it will close. That's Monday, March 31st at 4 p.m. And then this is a basic summary of the grant program, which you'll find more details about in the RFP. And on eligibility, we can see that it's just nonprofits who will be applying for this grant and those serving Johnson County. And then if we look at the financial tab, there's very basic information here. We're not totally sure on number of awards or award size. It's going to be determined by the applications themselves. But we do know that we cannot exceed that $350,000 mark. Matching is not required, but it is recommended. It will definitely help to strengthen the application, matching type cash or in kind. And you can find more notes on that over here in the financial notes section. Contact information is going to be social services at johnsoncountyiowa.gov. I believe Lori and her teammates have access to that. And any other troubles, you can also reach out to grants at johnsoncountyiowa.gov. And either Peter or I will be able to help you or get you to someone who can help you as well. And then if we look at this files tab, you'll see some materials that will be handy to download. This budget form is a required attachment for your application. If you click these links, they'll download automatically. So I'm just clicking to download here, and now it's in my download folder. Here is a copy of the full RFP, which is basically the text guidelines for the entire funding opportunity, where you can find all of the important information that you'll need to submit a competitive application, as well as that timeline that Lori showed us before with all the deadlines and everything like that. So good idea to download that one for sure. The portal guide is a sort of written form of what I'm going to give you here in a second, a guide to the eCivis platform. You can click that as a reference if you have any trouble registering or submitting your application. It's a good idea to just look in here and see if you might have see if your issue might have an answer just in this handy guide. If not, feel free to reach out. Onward, we can look at, again, for information's sake, we've included that table of risks and protective factors that Lori went over before, breaking this out for you to reference, again, so that you can put together the most compelling application possible. So that's for your information as well. Then we have a couple of attachments here that you can include in your application. This project work plan attachment, Lori went over in her presentation. So this is the actual attachment that you'll fill out with your SMART goals and activities. So we've got instructions here on the first page. And then if we scroll down, we can start typing in our goals and all of this information. One thing I want to just reiterate is that this is a PDF document. It's not actually part of the portal itself. So you want to make sure that you download a copy and save it to your computer, and then you'll be uploading it with your application. Once we go through the portal steps and everything, I'll show you where to do that. And there's another opportunity to download this if you don't get it from this files section. So once you've looked through this, you'll click the apply button, and that'll take you to the eCivis portal. If you've already created an account, you'll see a screen that looks a lot like mine with hopefully, auto-filled information if you've saved it. If you have not yet created an account, it's super easy. There's this green create an account button. You can click that, and you just enter some very basic information, first and last name, email address, and choose a strong password. Then you'll click sign up, and it'll send you a confirmation email, which you'll just click through to confirm your account. And once you've done that, you'll have access to this sign-in screen. I'm actually gonna close out and go back just so that it takes me to the application when I sign in. So I've got my login screen here. I'm gonna click portal login. Portal instead of Grants Network, just to be clear. So yeah, make sure you click that portal login button. Then it should take you to this application screen. You can see that we're on Johnson County Social Services. The funding opportunity is JJYD, FY 26 and 28 through 28. You won't see these applications here unless you've already started. These are my kind of test applications that I've already started. So it does save them as long as you're clicking save as you do it. But you probably won't see anything here yet. So you'll click create new application, and it says, are you sure you want to create a new application? And yes, we're sure. Let's create it. So it'll load for a second, and then it'll bring you back to that screen with your applications. These are the new applications that don't yet have an application title. So you can tell that it's a brand new one that you haven't started yet by this kind of code number. You'll just see one of these. So that just tells you that, yes, this is the one you want. It doesn't even have a title yet. It's fresh. So you can click one of these. I don't think it matters for me which one I click. I'm going to click the newest one. So once we've got our application open, the first thing we see is team members. So this is where you'll add collaborators if you'd like to do that. It's not required at all, but you can add a team member by clicking this button. And if we scroll down, we can invite anybody with an email address, and we can send that to them. It will send them an email, say you've been invited to collaborate on this grant, and it'll have them register and be directed to here as well. Again, this is not required, but it is a handy tool if you are looking to work on this with somebody else. Over here on the left, we see this kind of menu, sort of an outline of the grant process. This kind of shows us what we need to accomplish before the application is complete. You'll notice that right now there is only the team members and the letter of intent sections, because this does require a letter of intent to be submitted before we see the rest of the application. You'll remember that Lori had outlined a timeline, and that in that timeline there was a letter of intent due date that's passed. Don't worry about that. This just requires us to put something in here to access the rest of the application. So I'm just going to click the next one down. We've got letter of intent. It says, please complete the information on the next page to inform Johnson County staff of your intent to apply for funding. When finished, click Save as Complete, and then submit application, and the full application will become available for you to complete. So we're going to keep going. We're going to put some information into the form. One thing to note is that for each page that we are completing on our application, we need to click this edit button in order to make changes to it. It can feel a little foreign, sort of unfamiliar, rather, to have to click the edit before we start typing. So just a heads up on that. So instructions here, click the edit button to fill out the information. Please remember to save changes. We have this note on the deadline. Again, please disregard that since we're past the deadline on the LOI. Don't worry about it. And then once you complete and submit this form, the full grant application will become available to you. So I'm just going to fill in some information here so that we can see the rest. We're going to put our project title here at the top. That'll tell the system what our project is called. And then we'll put in our organization name. We need to put in our UEI number. Again, this is the unique entity identifier number from SAM.gov. It is different from the tax ID or employer ID number. That's an optional identifier you can put in here. It's not required, but the SAM.gov number is. So I'm just putting in some test pieces here. One thing I also want to highlight is that the phone number format is very particular. It wants us to do 3 digits, dash, 3 digits, dash, and 4 digits. No parentheses, but we do need those dashes. And then we're just going to follow our instructions that we see at the bottom, scroll to the top of the page to click save. We're going to save this one as complete because we're done. If for whatever reason we needed to make some more changes, we could save as draft and come back to it, but we're going to save as complete. And once we save as complete, we'll be able to submit this and see the rest of the application. Great. So we can see over here on the left that letter of intent process is in progress, but this portion of it is completed and we can submit it. And then we'll be able to see the rest of the application. Great. So our letter of intent is completely done. That stage is finished, and we can begin our application submission stage. So instructions for this stage are very basic here. Complete the information in the following sections for consideration by the review committee. The first page, as Lori mentioned, is the cover page. We want to make sure to fill this out just to make sure we have all of that information documented. So that we can get payments to the right organizations and so on. It's a little bit repetitive for the LOI at this point since you'll be filling it all out at the same time, but hopefully that's not too much of an inconvenience. Got some other information here. It'd be great to include. Some of this is definitely required. You can tell required information by the red asterisk, but as much information as you can provide is definitely appreciated. And I'm just filling in some test information here. We got to scroll for our state. Put in a zip and then We'll include our applicant contact information. This tells us who's actually filling out the form. Again, with the phone number format, should be good there. And then we've got some other information we can provide. If the authorized representative of your organization is different from the person filling out the form, this could be, the project manager or the executive director, so on. You can put that information here to provide just a little extra context and information if we need to get in contact with you. Then we can see a short section at the bottom of the cover page with request information. We're going to put the amount of our request in this section, just overall ballpark, the amount of the request, not broken out into categories, just the full amount. Then we'll put the project period start date. Lori, I wondered if you wanted to give just a little bit of clarification on the project period start date. I think, we generally will look at some project periods that run through a fiscal year. And I believe that's what we're looking for in this case, to be potentially renewed for 2 additional fiscal years. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So the project period start date will in all likelihood be 7/1/25. Your project period end date will be 6/30/26. Because we issue contracts for only 1 year each, that will be your contracting period and your project period. However, assuming that we have continued funding and programs are achieving their contracted performance measures, there will be the opportunity for 2 renewals. So we'll issue contracts in FY26, and then there will be opportunities to renew for FY27 and renew for FY28.
Great, thank you, very clear. So yeah, most, if not all of your project period start dates will be what you see on the screen here. July 1st, 25 through June 30th, 26 to be renewed. Excellent. So once we've got our dates in, we'll put in a brief description of the project. Again, this is very brief, a couple, 2 to 3 sentences describing what the project entails. So we will scroll up to the top, following the instructions we saw there, and click Save as Complete. If we're done, again, we can click Save as Draft if we need to, but we're going to call this section complete. And if something wasn't filled out that, like say you missed a required field, you would see, a little alert telling you, hey, you forgot to do this. But we hit everything that was required there. So we're going to move on to project description. That's the next form here. So this is where we're going to fill in kind of the bulk of the narrative. This first question is a demonstration of need. Lori went over kind of the nitty gritty for what we're looking for in responses. You can find more information in the RFP as well. Again, we want to make sure we click that edit button at the top to start making changes to the page. So I'm going to put in some just placeholder information there. One thing I want to point out as well is that we do have character limits assigned to each of these text fields. They vary, the limit varies depending on what question is being answered. So just make sure to take note of this note that is at the bottom of each text field. We can see this one has a 1,500 character limit. I also included the approximation of how many words that adds up to, just because I know that it can be so frustrating for something to say character limit, but for whatever reason, you read it as word limit, and then you type way too much and then you have to trim it way down. Yeah, been there, it's a pain. So yeah, just trying to make that as clear as possible. We've got our 1,500 character limit for this first one, about 300 words. And we're going to move on once we've got that filled out to the project overview, where we're going to summarize the project, identify the strategies, programming to be provided, and describe how those strategies and programming will meet the identified needs. And then we will also address how our organization is uniquely qualified to provide the services and describe the staff qualifications for the project. There is a note here that job descriptions for primary roles may be included as attachments. You'll see that we've added a space to upload additional attachments later in the application, so you can do that there. So we're going to include a response here, and this one is a little bit longer, 2,500 character limit, about 500 words. And then we're going to move on to the description of program or service. So we're going to describe the specific proposed services or activities to be provided, including all of these points. And here's some additional guiding points to help you formulate your response. So we're going to put in a response here. This one has a 5,000 character limit because it is a little bit more in depth. So you've got some room to work. One thing I wanted to just suggest is that it would be a good idea to formulate your responses outside of the portal, just because you've got kind of a limited view for these text fields. So it's usually helpful, I find, to open up, say, a Word document, especially one that you can turn on autosave with, and start formulating your responses there, just so that you can kind of come back to it. You don't have to worry about it disappearing if the internet goes out or something. And you can kind of see everything all at once. So just a tip there. Next, we're going to move to program evaluation. This is where you describe your plan for evaluation, including the tools, the person responsible, timing, progress measurements, and there's an opportunity to include examples of the tools as attachments later on. So we're going to include a response there. And again, we've got our instructions to scroll to the top to click save. I'm going to scroll up here. Missed it. Save as complete. And then we're going to see that little green bubble pop up to let us know that that page is done. We're going to keep moving here. We've got our project work plan. So this is the work plan we saw in the files earlier, and the one that Lori talked about in her presentation. Here is another opportunity to download the file, and this is where we will upload it. Again, we want to make sure we click that edit button to make changes to the page. Higher on the page here, we have included the instructions for filling this out. This is the same information that you'll find on the first page of the download. We just wanted to make sure that you wouldn't miss that by accident. So if we click the link, it will download automatically. It'll show up in our downloads folder. I don't like to open these kinds of attachments in the browser, just because I feel like there's a little bit more control that you have if you open it up on your desktop. So I just navigate to my downloads folder, open it up here, and then you can save it wherever you like on your computer. So yeah, I've got my form here. I'm going to put in some test information. And once you've got this filled out, you'll want to save it to your machine. And once it's saved, you'll be able to upload it. I'm going to close out and go back. And we can add our file here in the Upload Form C section. We're going to add our file that we just saved. And that's ready to go. So we've got our instructions to save at the top again. So I'm going to click Save as Complete. And then we're almost done, just a couple more steps. So we've got on the next page, the Cooperating Agency Agreement section. This is where you're going to include these agreements that you need to obtain for any partners that you've talked to and worked with to create your proposal. Yeah, any other organizations, any entities that you're working with on your proposed project, you'll want a cooperating agency agreement here. And additional letters of commitment may be submitted from other agency partners as well. So there's the blank fillable form here. So you can click that to download it. And I'll just open it up so you can see what we're looking at. It is a fillable form. Again, you'll want to just include the name of the agency, your agency here, the applicant agency, that's your agency. And then sort of the terms of the agreement will go in here. And then you'll want to make sure it's just, electronically signed by your executive director. Can include the name and any contact information there and dated as well. So once you've got that filled out, you again just want to make sure you save it to your machine and upload it to the page here. Again, with the edit button, that's something that I'm still not quite used to. Make sure you click edit. So you can upload your completed agency agreement. Again, this one is recommended, and I would say that if you are partnering with another entity, you will want to get this signed and uploaded, but it is not a requirement to apply for this funding round. You can definitely apply without this piece. Again, Lori, please interrupt me if I say anything out of turn or incorrect.
No, yeah, that's correct. So if in your
Okay.
proposal you say, we're going to be collaborating with this agency, they're going to have this grant, we're going to do this, then the question is, have they already secured that funding? Do they know that you're planning to include them? How firm is that information? If it's simply, we're going to accept referrals from community partners and send referrals to them, you don't need that for that. But if they're going to be providing any sort of services under the grant or providing specific matching funding and things, then you would want something.
Great. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. So yeah, you'll include that there. If you have multiple agency agreements, there's space to upload those here. And then if we scroll down a little bit further, we can see a spot for additional attachments. So this is where you'll include sort of any additional attachments, as it says, anything that's not required, but that you think would strengthen your proposal, any additional information that could back it up.
Yeah, so this might be those job descriptions that we talked about, or maybe a copy of the evaluation form you're going to use. Those are kind of the things we had said you might use. So this is sort of there.
Perfect. So yeah, you can add those to these file upload spots here. We've included plenty of them so that hopefully you won't run out of space to upload. And then once you've completed that, scroll to the top, click Save as Complete. I will say if you don't have anything to upload, if you say don't have a cooperating agency agreement and you're not including any of these because they are optional, you'll still want to click that Edit button and then just Save as Complete, even if you don't upload anything, just to get that green bubble here to mark it as completed. And then in the next section, we're going to look at the budget requirements for this application. So again, there's a download that you'll want to click on, and that will download a spreadsheet to your machine, and you'll fill out the budget attachment, save it, and then upload it. As well as a separate upload, there is a space down here to include a budget narrative. So that's just a document that you'll create. Just a Word doc would work fine. You can upload a budget narrative, including details for each line item that you've included in your budget form to give kind of a narrative explaining why you're asking for funding for each line item. So there are instructions here, cover like the the period, the funding period. It's going to cover that upcoming fiscal year that we talked about before, July 1st, 25 through 26. Some instructions to just download the sheet and fill it out, and specifying other sources of support for your program, including grants, in-kind support, etc. And then a note here about matching funds. They are encouraged but not required if cash or in-kind support is utilized for the total program budget. Include that information in the proposed budget. If there will be a subcontract, include a budget for each project partner. You can use this budget form. You'll just want to make sure that you uploaded it in that extra attachments area. And then once completed, save your budget and upload it below. So we can click here to download it. And then I'm going to open up the downloads folder. And we can look at that together briefly. I believe this will be fairly familiar for most folks. This is where you're going to input, for instance, so you're going to input each line item that you're requesting funding for. There are sections that you'll want to review, and any piece that applies to your application, you'll want to include a description and an amount. And then over here, you can see the other revenue column. This is where you can include revenue from other sources. So for instance, for salaries and benefits, you can put the job title of the position that you're requesting funding for, and then the total cost of that, and the total request that you're asking for from this funding opportunity. And then any other revenue that is applying to that as well.
Ryan, I think
yeah.
we might have set this up so that the total cost calculates automatically.
Okay.
So if you put in the JJYD request and then the other revenue, I think.
Okay.
Let's give that a try.
That looks correct.
Yep. Okay. So
yes. Okay. So you don't need to fill this out.
Yeah, we tried to eliminate calculation errors.
Sure.
So if there's any problems, folks can let me know, but hopefully this will work out fine.
Sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah. Can you show quickly too how to add a line? Do you know how to so
sure.
If somebody wants to add a line, you need to make sure you do it between A and B.
Okay.
Otherwise it might, yep. So if you click on the B, there you go. And then insert. Yeah. That way your new lines will still be included in that calculation and in the totals.
That makes sense.
Otherwise it might not add in there. So
I see. So it includes it in the totals here. Okay. It just doesn't quite show up in this section.
It's not showing up there. Oh gosh.
But I would say that's probably the least crucial piece.
Right.
We do have the request, other revenue amount, and it does the math for us down here. It's just
it does, yeah.
Not there. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that works just fine.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so once we have our budget filled out, we should see our totals at the bottom here. Looks good. And then we also have a detail chart, including salary costs, which just provides a little bit more information about the specific positions that you're asking funding for. And then we have another one for other revenue where you can provide more information about those other revenue pieces. Were there any other points you wanted to talk about in regards to those, Lori?
Okay, I said no, and then I started talking. Yes, so you'll see under the salary chart, it has brought down the totals from the chart up above. So you just want to make sure that these totals that you put in here are the same as the ones up above.
Got it.
So, because the idea is that all of that salary and benefits will be shown in more detail down here.
That makes sense. So yeah, if we put in the same information we put above, we can see total cost shows up, and the totals for this detail chart
Mhm.
match what was up above. So that's a good way to check that. Great.
All right, thanks.
All right. So we've got that filled out. Similar situation for the other revenue, and it's just those two charts. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then once we have that complete, we'll upload it. Again, we want to click that edit button, add file, find our file and open, and then it is there. And then the next attachment is going to be the budget narrative. This is where you're going to provide more information, more context on each of the line items that you're requesting funding for. So for salaries and benefits, we're going to include job description, wages, benefits, and this is going to kind of expound upon what is in the detail chart. Program costs, we're going to detail and describe items such as mileage, handouts, marketing, etc., identifying number of miles and mileage rate. And you can see that there's a description for each piece here. I'm not going to read each one of these for you, but you get the idea that we're providing more information for each line item. And you can just you can write this out in a Word doc and save it, and then you'll just add your file here when you're ready. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to pick a file that I have saved, and that will be able that will enable us to mark this as complete. And then we've got all green bubbles. The only thing left is to fill out the goals section. So these are some goals that have been identified in the social services department that that we want to accomplish with this funding opportunity. So there are a handful, or maybe two handfuls, of goals listed over here. We can see at the top, the first one is increase in youth feeling more connected to their community. And that's a percentage that we're looking for. So you can place your target in this first box. So for instance, if you are aiming to have 100% of the youth that participate in your program reporting that they're feeling more connected to their community, you would put 100 in here. If you do know that there's like a direct cost associated with each unit, you can put that in here. It's not required. I would recommend just ignoring these next three boxes unless you know for sure that there is a direct cost or a matching cost associated with each unit. So you'll choose the ones that are pertinent to your application. I don't imagine that anybody will be filling out something for every one of these goals. You'll choose the ones that apply just to your project.
And
so,
actually,
yeah.
I was going to say, and actually you're better off really narrowing it down, because we'll be looking at each one of these, and that's a lot to try to achieve. So I would just pick one or two that you know for sure you can achieve, and not try to do too many. Be really realistic.
Great. So once you've chosen your very specific ones, we will save our goals, and then we can click return to application. And it looks like mine logged out, which is fun. Just gonna, and also my Teams bar is kind of getting in the way. So I'm gonna go to log in again. Actually, that was because I have my kind of the back end system logged in. So I think that was just all that was. So here's our application. I'm going to go ahead and click this again and just confirm that it saved. Yep, we've got our goals saved. Sorry about that. So we're good to go there. You can see it actually opened it up in a new tab. So we still have our application open over here. That's what this little box with the arrow indicates. So once we've saved our goals, we can go ahead and submit application. And that will effectively end your application process. It will send it off to be reviewed by the review committee. And again, you want to make sure you get this submitted by Monday, March 31st at 4 p.m. Once you submit it, you can look over your responses, of course. It's a good idea to do that before you submit it, just to make sure that everything looks good and it's what you want to submit. Another thing that you may want to note is there is an export to PDF button here, which is handy for keeping records, just keeping your own files. So you can click that and get the copy of that as well. And so at that point, your application is submitted and it's under review, and it's kind of ball is in our court now to review and reach back out to you if anything else is needed, or once a decision has been reached. At this point, I've kind of gone through from start to finish the full application process. Does anybody have any questions about this?
All right. Thank you. I appreciate, Ryan, that you went through all of that with everyone. I
Sure.
also know that it's a lot for folks. So we did record this, and we'll make the recording available to all of you. So if there was a part that you missed a little bit or something like that, you'll be able to watch this again. I'm going to send out an email that will include a few links in it, and information. And then beyond that, if you have questions, as Ryan showed you, and it says in the application, social services at johnsoncountyiowa.gov is where you would send that. Okay. If there are not any questions or comments, then I believe wow, 203 is not bad for everything we covered.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.